What is up, guys, and welcome back to Dawn of Man, episode number 8. It's truly incredible. We're 8 weeks strong now, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about a topic that is truly at heart of Dawn of Man, the novel, and it is a topic of transhumanism and, more importantly, immortality. So for those of you that this really strikes up in a weird way, immortality is truly a thing that many companies, many researchers are currently working on. Immortality is more or less a reality of the future. It is already happening, and even if we may at some point, if we fail to truly achieve full-on immortality, at the very least what's already happening and what will be happening over the coming years is an immense sense of life extension, so that perhaps we can become 500 years old, as one Google exec says, or life expectancies of hundreds and maybe even thousands of years, which most of us would consider mortal. We watch TV shows about like vampires and all that, and sometimes they are like hundreds of years old, thousands of years old. That is likely to be a reality for people currently alive. In fact, I watched Ray Kurzweil talk a few years ago in person, and he mentioned that if you're currently, under the age of 50 and taking good care of your body, there's a great chance that you will be living to an age where you can become immortal. So when we talk about transhumanism, there's 3 main categories, and in fact, transhumanism is a huge field of study. So I want to tackle 3 areas right now that are very prominent in the transhumanist field, and see how they're going to extrapolate in the future. So the first one we're going to talk about is mind uploading. So one of the concepts is that, with transhumanism is really standing for transcending human limitations. One of the futures that many transhumanists see is that we no longer will have the physical body, the physical organic bodies. That that we'll basically find a way to remove our consciousness from the bodies that we're born with. So one of the big concepts of transhumanism is mind uploading. So that, for example, let's say when you die, or even before you die, you can always, just like you back up your computer, you can back up your mind. So if something were to happen to you, somebody could simply give you a new body, upload your consciousness, upload your brain back into that body, because it truly takes a perspective of us, separating our consciousness, our mind, our spirit from the body. And from a neurological perspective, they're already looking into that right now, where you could do brain scans to an extent where you could replicate all that's stored in the brain. So with mind uploading, the goal would be that we can create immortality by making it no longer matters if our physical body dies, because we can basically bring ourselves back to life with a copy, right? And another side, effect that comes out of that is the concept of cloning. Cloning is already, it has been practiced in the past with animals, and it will be something that will be coming back with humans in the future, because once you're able to basically replicate yourself once you die, why not do it while you're alive? Right, so this is one of the main debates that we need to have in, I think, Dawn of Man, episode number 6. We talk about how politics oftentimes lags behind it. Now, when we get to human cloning, when we get to, bringing people back to life with, mind uploading, that is something that politicians need to be aware of before it is too late. And that is also a way of, with mind uploading, how humans can really transcend into AI, in the sense that if we no longer have the physical bodies and we basically digitize our human consciousness, then could that be the step that we need to take to create truly self-learning, self-aware AI? Okay? So that is one big part of transhumanism, the mind uploading aspect. Another big part of transhumanism is to basically redefine our human body, our human limitations. So some transhumanists truly have the goal of, for example, creating bodies at your own wish. Perhaps, why can't humans have wings, for example, right? So it's creating genetic modifications, creating alterations to the body, making us stronger, giving us more limbs, giving whatever it is you desire. There's already now some people that I believe, the wife of Max Moore, the guy that owns Alcor, which Alcor, just so you know, is an institution that already now people are paying $200,000 in order to be frozen in a cabinet. You basically get your whole body gets frozen once you die, so that if in the future we're able to bring people back to life, you can be brought back to life. So Max Moore is one of the big names in transhumanists. His wife, I forgot her name, but she is very much focused on, basically redefining what it means to, the human body, basically redesigning, Kind of like the way we look at fashion now with clothing, why don't we look at bodies as fashion, where we can really redefine? Perhaps one person has wings, perhaps one person does something completely different. Truly, the thing with transhumanism, again, it's transcending the limits of what it means to be human, right? So that is another era of transhumanism. So in the third and final part is recoding human genetics. This is kind of where, biotech and neurotech and all the kind of stuff comes back together, where we can, for example, recode our DNA so that, for example, we make ourselves cancer resistant, so that we make ourselves like less prone to heart attacks and all that kind of stuff, or perhaps that we inject ourselves with something that will make us superhuman strong and all these kind of things. So that is really the exciting part, where we can basically manipulate ourselves. We can manipulate our DNA and our genes to become superhuman, right? So, and that is the aspect that can lead us towards immortality, because right now most people, or at least life extension, because right now most people, they have the very same causes, right? So the majority of people, they have heart disease. Another large portion of people, they die of cancer, diabetes, all these type of things. But once we truly master, human genetics, and everything goes on in our bodies, we can truly recode ourselves to become more or less immortal, where the only way you die is if perhaps somebody shoots you, or maybe you get in a car accident. But then if that happens, maybe you already kept a copy of your brain with mental uploading in order to bring yourself back even then. So that way we truly become indestructible. So that is one of the goals of the transhumanist agenda, to make humans immortal. Now, with the general idea of making humans immortal, we have to ask ourselves the question, is immortality, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Now, the utopian scenario that Max Moore believes in is that we can live in a world, where everybody is immortal, because at that point, maybe people have less kids, and more importantly, you live until you want to die. So that we change the dialogue. It's not about being immortal, but much rather it's choosing your own death. So that perhaps not everybody wants to live thousands of years. Perhaps somebody just maybe wants to live long enough to accomplish their goals, to accomplish their dreams, to make the impact and leave the legacy that they want to. So through that, essentially, suicide could become the death of choice in the future, where people live as long as they want to, and when they feel like they've hit their life's purpose, their life goal, the accident style. That could be the utopian future of immortality. Now, the dystopian future of immortality is very, very dark, because when we talk about immortality, what really comes to mind, and this is something I have explored in depth in Dark Age, the book I've already published, is what will really emerge is a right to life debate. Because what you have to think about is that when these new technologies come up, when immortality becomes a reality, there will be a price tag associated to it. And if a scientist really finds a way to basically discover or invent immortality, then they will be charging a lot of money for it. We're talking millions of dollars. So with that, only the richest of the rich will be able to afford this treatment in order to become immortal. Which then, in case the poor people, you're essentially telling them, it's like, oh, you're condemning us to die. You have the tools to make sure I can be immortal, yet you condemn us because we don't have the money to pay you to die an early death. So it's essentially the abortion debate in reverse. So with abortion, you're taking people's lives before they ever have the chance to live, right? It's like being pro-life. The same thing can be said with immortality, is where if we have the tools to allow somebody to live longer, you not giving the tools is essentially you killing them. So this is one of the huge issues that will emerge in the transhumanist revolution and in the immortality revolution, truly, because what will truly emerge in 99% scenario is that the super rich, the super elite, will now, beyond having the power and the money, will more or less become demigods. They will become immortal, they will become indestructible, while the masses simply continue living the human life. And we're not just talking about lifespan in terms of age. Again, we're talking about altering the human condition, meaning that they could be super strong, they could be hyper intelligent. Basically, you can recode anything that is going on, so that the rich become richer, the rich become older, the rich become stronger, healthier, you name it. So, and this is one of the big scenarios I explore in Dawn of Man, where I personally see how I think the mortality revolution will be one of the main catalysts for a third world war breaking out. And the third world war will not be between countries or between nations, but much rather between classes. It's the final uprise of the middle class, of the lower classes, from being forever under the tyranny of the ultra rich, who then also become immortal. So that is something I see happening by 2050, and that is one of the main concepts at heart of Dawn of Man. Okay, but let's just play devil's advocate for one moment here. Right, so we might be saying that, everything might become dystopian, the rich become richer, only the upper echelon of our society can become immortal. But what would the alternative look like? What would it look like if everybody in this world would be able to become immortal? What could that look like? Whether we're facing overpopulation, or whether could they even handle being immortal? So many people already lack the meaning in their lives, where we talked about this in, I think, episode number 3 in the automation debate, where we talked about how most people, their studies that say after retirement, most people die. So if you live forever, how are they going to find meaning in their lives? But forget about that. Let's dive a lot deeper into the rabbit hole. So we would be making criminals immortal. We'd be making a lot of people that already now can't support themselves immortal, and they're now basically have to live forever, because most people focus on just making it through life. Now, if life never ends, you really have to have a paradigm shift. You see, one of the main characters in, one of the more supporting cast characters in Dawn of Man, the novel, talks about how Charles Darwin, the guy who coined survival of the fittest, how he would turn in his grave if he would know that we would make everybody in this world immortal. Because by definition, us being able to die makes us strive to survival. It makes us work harder in order to survive, in order to thrive. But if you take that challenge away, then most people would lose their purpose, most people would lose their drive, and more importantly, we would have more freeloaders than you could ever imagine. Because if you combine things like immortality, UBI, we're going to live in some really weird and twisted world. So that character also believes that, immortality could be something great, but maybe only, for the upper echelon. Like, for example, what if, we could have, Gandhi be alive forever, or Steve Jobs be alive forever, or like a lot of the great minds of our times. What if they were truly immortal and we could keep learning from them, have them create the technologies and the innovations that they've brought forth, rather than have them be limited by time? So many of the great minds in our world, they died before the age of 50, and some of them died in the age, like by age 20, 30, 40. You say, just imagine if they had a full lifespan. Now imagine if they had 500 years. So it's a double-edged sword where they could produce more, but at the same time, when you really think about it, immortality will bring rise to more centralizations in individual players. So nature, in its ultimate wisdom, made us mortal, made us potentially die, so that we could not gain too much power within our lifetimes to mess up this planet. Now, if we make one man or one woman able to become immortal, or 500 years old, 1,000 years old, there's a lot of damage we could do, of course, but there's also a lot of good we could do. So it's truly for us to figure out whether or not immortality is something aspirational or something that we need to prevent at any cost. And beyond that, I think immortality can be a great thing. I think the initial utopian scenario is truly amazing when we think about the idea that instead of us just being pulled out of life in the middle of things, we can choose our own path, we can choose our own death, we can finish our journey, write our book till the final page, and when we say put the dot at the end and we say this is it, we step out. I think there's something beautiful and there's something poetic about that, and that could be a utopian future. However, if that is the case, we still need to find a way to make it sustainable. Because if we need to find a way to have immortality for everybody, while at the same time maintaining sustainability, meaning not overpopulating the globe, not destroying our environment, maintaining the meaning that we have within our lives, staying productive, staying happy, and all the things that there are there. Because I think the first humans that will truly are able to extend life to new realms and a fast pace. Maybe a few hundred years ago, people would only turn 30 years old, 40 years old. And then over centuries, we extended that to now in life expectancy in the 72, 76 year range. But in a few decades, we'll be able to push it into the hundreds of years. And then you truly have to ask, are people ready for that? What are they going to do with those extra 50 years they just gained, the extra 100 years? They're not ready for that. People are literally planning right now for a life within 100 years. Most people in life, they are not planning on being older than 100 years. Yet I would dare say that unless something crazy happens to them, 50% of them will be older than 100 years. Because medicine will be at the point that will allow us to be this old. So we need to find a way to maintain the meaning with our lives. We need to find a way to keep our planet safe, even if everybody becomes immortal. And lastly, we need to find a way where we can maintain a decentralization of power without letting individuals basically ascend to the level of demigod, where they could become tyrants of whole countries, or perhaps the world. So, with that said, please take a moment to think about it, and I would love to hear your comments right below what you think, whether or not immortality is a good thing, whether it's a bad thing, whether you think it's ever going to happen or whether it's never going to happen. And if you had the chance, would you let yourself be treated to become immortal, to extend your life, to enhance your genetics, to become superhuman? Would you do it? I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below, and I'll see you next time. Take care.